Okay, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. This is the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation regular Board of Directors meeting. It is October 12th, 2023, and it is 9 a.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and first like to ask for a roll call, Elsa, if you could.
In attendance today, we have Chair Gary Mackler, Vice Chair Carol Ryman, Directors Jay Kimura, Don Mende, and Designee Scott Murakami.
Have established.
Oh, I'm sorry. And Director Sean Sasaki.
Before we move into the agenda, I do want to ask Director Kimura, since you are remote, is there anyone else with you in attendance?
No one else.
Thank you very much. Also, as we go through the discussion and decision-making portion of today's agenda, I will invite the public to give comment on any of these agenda items. But before I do, I'd like to ask our Executive Assistant, Bill Wan, to please cover the ground rules for public testimony.
Thank you, Chair. Anyone wishing to present oral testimony should indicate so to the Chair. Oral testimony will be limited to 3 minutes, subject to the discretion of the Chair. Your testimony must be related to an item on the board agenda. Before you begin your testimony, we ask that you identify yourself and spell your name for the record. After 3 minutes, I will call time, after which you will have 15 seconds to conclude your testimony. Keep in mind that this is an opportunity for you to share your thoughts with us. If you ask questions during your testimony, neither the board nor the staff is required to provide an answer. For anyone wishing to submit written testimony, instructions for doing so are on the front page of the agenda under the section titled Public Testimony.
Thank you, Bill. Going on to item 2A of the agenda, which is to approve the regular meeting minutes for September 14, 2023. Can I have a motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, if not, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The second item under approval of minutes are the executive session minutes of September 14th, 2023. We are going to take those up in executive session today. Going on to section 3 of the agenda, discussion and or decision making. The first item is item A, which is report by the executive director, search and selection permitted interaction group, findings and recommendations. So just for the public to know, a permitted interaction group, which we used to call a subcommittee, was established to conduct a search for a permanent executive director. And this is since the interaction group was established, this is our second board meeting, so we cannot make decisions today, but we do want to give the board members, our directors, a briefing and report, and we would prefer to do that in executive session. So I would like to ask for a motion to go to executive session. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's, and by the way, for those of you who are here, it's only going to be 5 to 10 minutes at the most, so it's pretty short.
but it's a Zoom meeting.
Okay, thank you. We're back in session, regular session. Just to let the public know that in the executive session, the permitted interaction group made a finding and recommendation on the selection of a permanent executive director. And that recommendation will be considered at a subsequent meeting. We're hoping for that to be done in November at the regular board meeting. So,
And the minutes were approved.
oh, yes. And in addition, the executive session meeting minutes from September 14th, 2023 were approved as submitted. So now I'd like to move on to item 3B of the agenda. This is to accept the audited financial statements of the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation's Nani Opuna project for the fiscal years ended June 30, 2023 and 2022. Good morning. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm taking things out of sequence. Is there a motion? Second?
Second.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify on this agenda item? Okay, if not, we'll turn it over.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Holly Osumi, Chief Financial Officer. The Nani Opuna project is under the corporation's Oil Unit Revolving Fund, also known as DERF. The project is located in Puna and on the island of Hawaii and is comprised of 31 rentable units and one resident manager unit. It houses domestic farmers, and it was funded through grant with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA. The USDA requires an annual audit, which is the primary reason for this board action. The audit of the project's comparative financial statements for the years ended June 30, 2023 and 2022 has been completed by the independent auditor, IA, LLP. The report was issued on September 28, 2023 and has been attached and included materials as Exhibit A. Two reports were issued. First was the independent auditor's report on pages 1 through 3. The auditor rendered an unmodified opinion, or a clean opinion, on the June 30, 2023 financial statements. The audit for the prior year, June 30, 2022, was performed by Acuity, LLP, who expressed an unmodified opinion as well. Secondly, independent auditor's report on internal control, which is on pages 12 through 13. The auditor did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that are considered material weaknesses, and no instances of non-compliances were noted. On pages 4, 5, and 6 are the financial statements of the project. Statement of net position presents the assets, liabilities, and net position as of June 30, 2023. On page 5, statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position, it presents the fiscal year's activities of revenues, expenses, and transfers that contributed to the change in net position. The project's total net positions decreased by approximately $12,000 or 1.4% to approximately $819,000 as of June 30, 2023, as compared to approximately $831,000 in the prior year. The decrease was primarily attributed to net operating losses of approximately $25,000, net transfers from DERF of approximately $14,000, and interest expense paid of $1,000 to USDA. On page 6, the statement of cash flows shows the cash provided for the project. Net cash and restricted cash increased by $700 as of June 30, 2023. As required under the terms of the mortgage agreement, the audited financial statements shall be submitted to USDA by their deadline extended to October 31st, 2023. Staff's recommendation is to accept the audited financial statements of the HHFDC's Nani Opuna project for the fiscal years ended June 30, 2023 and 2022. I'd like to introduce Chris Matika. Chris is Mike Bailey, the auditors that conducted the audit.
I'm on camera for those who are not in the room. Thank you, Holly. I appreciate it. Again, my name is Chris Matika. I'm a senior audit manager at I-Bailey out of our Boise, Idaho office. I've been doing this. This is my 13th year as an independent auditor. I audit also Idaho Housing and Finance Association, Alaska Housing Finance Corporation, and Washington Housing Finance Association. So this is my fourth housing association that I work on an annual basis. We are very excited to be here. We have had great interactions so far with Holly and with the management team. We look forward to the relationship, and I'm very happy to meet y'all. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those too.
Thank you. Thank you, Holly. Okay.
Any questions?
Directors, any questions for Holly? Okay, if not, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to go on to item 3C. This is to approve the corporation entering into a tri-party cooperative agreement with the State of Hawaii Department of Budget and Finance and the City and County of Honolulu to coordinate the award of the city's private activity bond 2022 and 2023 annual ceiling. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there anyone in the public wishing to give testimony on this agenda item? Hearing none, I'll turn it over to David.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Directors. David Oy, Finance Manager for HHFDC. So this item is regarding the tri-party cooperative agreement between HHFDC, State of Hawaii Department of Budget and Finance, and the City and County of Honolulu. So just to give an overview of the private activity bond cap that we're discussing. So every state and U.S. possession is limited to a maximum amount of private activity bonds that can be issued on an annual basis. The amount is based on the state's population and is computed annually by the IRS. The amount allocated to each state is what's referred to as the bond cap, or the state ceiling. The amount of state ceiling is then allocated among the qualified private activity bond issuers within a state. And this allocation is called the issuing authority's volume cap. So the state ceiling for the state of Hawaii for 2022 was $335,115,000. Now, per Section 39B2 HRS, the state is allocated 50% of that volume cap, and the City and County of Honolulu is allocated 37.55% of the volume cap. So for 2022, the city's allocation totaled $125,835,682. In December of 2022, the city filed its IRS 8238 form, which means that they elected to carry forward their allocation of bond cap. And as a result, the city was no longer able to allocate any of those funds back to the state. So they had to keep it. Later in that year, the city awarded $14.1 million of its city allocation to its own projects. So what that left the city with for their 2022 volume cap was $111,664,446 for the city for 2022. Now in 2023, under the same statute, based on the volume cap allocation, the city was allocated an additional $134,746,297 from the state ceiling. So HHFDC is currently, for the state, in the process of making its funding round 2023 awards. Based on the staff's evaluation and the scoring criteria, there were two projects in the City County of Honolulu for new construction that were deemed the highest ranking and worthy of an award. Those two projects are the Kuhio Park low-rise and homes redevelopment project, we'll call it KPT, and the Kalemao Village, also known as West Lock. So staff has determined that there's enough rental housing revolving funds with the corporation, but insufficient Hula May multifamily bond capacity from the 2023 cap allocated portion to the state to make an award. For these projects, the city has indicated their interest in offering awards of their 2022 remaining bond cap balance to KPT and Westlock. So HHFDC has proposed awarding the projects its requested rental housing revolving fund awards and its low-income housing tax credit awards while using the City and County of Honolulu's bond allocation for 2022. Also concurrently, HHFDC is amending its qualified allocation plan for the next funding round. In that round, one of the changes we're contemplating is changing the scoring to reflect a higher preference for transit-oriented development projects as well as projects on state or county lands. Now, the city, HHFDC, and the Department of Budget and Finance would enter into the cooperative agreement that's attached as Exhibit B to the for action to coordinate the award of the city's 2022 private activity bond allocation for new construction projects in the city.
Excuse me, David, we're having some audio problems on YouTube, so I think at this time, while we work those problems out, I'd like to go ahead and recess the meeting so we can get back online with the audio. So this meeting is in recess until further notice. Sorry about that. Okay, we are going to take this meeting out of recess. We are on agenda item 3C. This is approve the corporation entering into a tri-party agreement, cooperative agreement, the State of Hawaii Department of Budget and Finance and the City and County of Honolulu coordinate the award of the city's private activity bond 2022 and 2023 annual ceiling. We have our finance manager, David Boyd, and David, I'm sorry, but you have to start your presentation.
Absolutely, Chair. Thank you. So the cooperative agreement, the cooperative tri-party agreement that's discussed in the for action is between the State of Hawaii Department of Budget and Finance, HHFDC, and the City and County of Honolulu to coordinate the award of the city's private activity bond cap for 2022 and 2023. So again, an overview of the private activity bond cap. So every state in the US and every US possession is limited to a maximum amount of qualified private activity bonds that can be issued on an annual basis. This amount is based on that state's population and is computed annually by the IRS. The amount allocated to each state is known as the state ceiling. The amount of the state ceiling is then allocated among the qualified private activity bond issuers within a state. HHFDC, Department of Budget and Finance is one of the bond issuers for the state, as well as HHFDC, and each county is an authorized issuer within the state. The allocation is called the issuing authority's volume cap. So the state ceiling overall for 2022 was $335,115,000. For section 39B2 HRS, the state is allocated 50% of the volume cap, and the City and County of Honolulu is allocated 37.55% of the volume cap. So for 2022, the City and County of Honolulu's total bond allocation was $125,835,682. In December of 2022, the city filed its IRS Form 8238, electing to carry forward this entire allocation of unused private activity bond volume cap. And as a result of this, the city is unable to assign any of its 2022 allocation back to the state. The city subsequently awarded $14,171,236 of its city allocation to its projects. The remaining 2022 balance for the city is $111,654,446. Now, in subsequent year, 2023, the city's allocation was $134,746,297 from the state ceiling. At the same time, HHFDC is currently in the process of making its funding awards for the current funding year 2023 award round. Based on the staff's evaluation and scoring criteria, the two top new construction projects in the City and County of Honolulu are the Kuhio Park low-rise and homes redevelopment project also known as KPT, and the Kalei Mall Village, also known as West Lock. Now, staff has determined that there is sufficient rental housing revolving funds, but to fund these projects, but insufficient Hula May multifamily bond capacity from the state's 2023 volume cap allocation portion. Now, the city and county of Honolulu has indicated its interest in offering awards of its 2022 bond allocation to KPT and West Lock. HHFDC has therefore proposed awarding the projects their requested rental housing revolving fund and low-income housing tax credit reservations while using the city's bond allocation to issue the bond award. HHFDC will also be amending its qualified allocation plan for the next funding round, 2024, the next round, not this current one. Among those changes being contemplated are the willingness to reflect a higher preference for transit-oriented development projects, as well as an increased preference for projects on state or county lands. The city, HHFDC, and the Department of Budget and Finance would therefore enter into a cooperative agreement, which is attached to your for action as Exhibit B, to coordinate the award of the 2022 city allocation balance for new projects in the city and county of Honolulu. One item to call particular attention to in Exhibit B, which is the cooperative agreement, is item 4. Item 4 details that if the full award of the city's 2022 bond allocation to the two city projects mentioned above will result either in an insufficient or partial award or private activity bond cap to these two projects, the city would fill the remaining balance from its 2023 allocation or any future allocation until the project financially closes. So for these two projects, if we move forward, the city would be responsible for providing the bond allocation upfront for the award, plus filling any gaps or increases as they deem qualified moving forward. So after making the award under item 4, as mentioned above, once that is agreed upon in the agreement, and once that is done, the city would irrevocably assign the remainder of its 2023 city allocation to the state for new construction housing projects in the city for use in HHFDC's 2024 funding round pursuant to HRS 33B2E, Session Law Hawaii 2023. Staff has reviewed the cooperative agreement. It recommends that the HHFDC Board of Directors approve the following. We recommend approving the corporation enter into the tri-party cooperative agreement with the State of Hawaii Department of Budget and Finance and the City and County of Honolulu, and authorize the Executive Director to undertake all tasks necessary to effectuate the purposes of this for action. I'm available for any questions, and we also have Aaron Nowacki from the city for any questions on their behalf as well.
Thank you, David. Before we get to that, I just want to make sure that we have in the record a motion. So I'm going to ask again for a motion on this agenda item. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
For a second.
Second.
We got a second. Again, is there anyone in the public wishing to testify on this agenda item? If not, I'd like to open it up for directors if you have questions for staff or former staff. Yes.
That item 4 on Exhibit B, you mentioned about increases review responsible of the state. The city. Who was responsible to approve those increases?
Those will be approved by the city because it'll be their bond issuance.
David, the assignment of the 2023 city allocation to the state will allow for additional opportunities for financing.
Yes, so those funds will be allocated back to the state of Hawaii, and we would recommend awards to the city and county of Honolulu. So it would definitely add to our balance that we can award in 2024 based on whatever our new Q, and it would be based on whatever revisions you make for the new QAP. So it will just result in additional units. It'll stay in the city and it'll be funding towards those awards. The allocation for the city that would come back in the amount traditionally would result in approximately three large-scale, high-density projects.
Anyone else? Then I'll call for the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. I'd like to go on to item 3D of today's agenda. This is to approve the program year 2024 allocation plan for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's National Housing Trust Fund program.
Thank you, Chair. My name is.
Just before you start, I'd like to ask if there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there anyone in the public wanting to testify on this agenda item? Okay, if not, we'll turn it over to Al.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Board. My name is Claude Allen, and I am a finance specialist with the Single Family and Federal Programs Unit. And the item you have before you, this for action is seeking board approval for the fiscal year 2024 National Housing Trust Fund allocation plan, subject to public comments. Final approved PY24 HTF allocation plan would be part of HHFDC's PY24 action plan that'll be submitted to HUD. For the benefit of those who may not be quite so familiar with the HTF program, I'll give just a very brief background about the program and then highlight some of the staff recommendations for the FY 2024 allocation plan before requesting a formal approval of the board. The HTF program was established by Title I of the Housing and Economic Recovery Act of 2008. And the HTF program is administered by HUD under the federal regulations 24 CFR Part 93. Part 92 is the Home Investment Partnerships programs. Those of you who are familiar with the home program, HTF is as many people say, is like the home program, except when it's different. And there are some unique differences. I'll just highlight just a few of them, and not all of them. But the home program, many of you may know, targets income brackets around 80%. And the HTF goes deeper. It goes down to very low income, about 30%. That's where that target is, 30% and less. Also, HTF emphasizes rental housing activities, about 80% rental housing activities, whereas homes a lot more flexible. With the HTF program, up to 10% of HTF funds can be used for home ownership housing activities, and 10% of the funds can be used for administration and planning purposes. There is a minimum affordability period in the HTF program of 30 years, as opposed to 5 to 20 years with homes. So it's a stricter, it's minimum of 30 years, whether you put $1 in or $1 million in. States are, as grantees, receive grants of HTF funds from HUD based on an allocation formula. And states have 24 months to commit HTF funds to eligible projects. That's kind of key. It's a 2-year window. Once HUD awards a state HTF funds, the clock starts ticking, and they're very strict. And so those funds have to get out the door and be expended 5 years from that time period. The state of Hawaii receives about $3 million annually in HTF funds. And HHFDC is the state of Hawaii's designated grantee, they call it. So HHFDC is responsible to administer the HTF program for the state of Hawaii. HHFDC focuses the HTF funds on rental housing, exclusively rental housing. HHFDC also allocates the HTF funds to the counties on a rotating basis. all the neighboring counties, when we, going back to the home program, one island will get it 1 year, the next year another island, and we just keep rotating that. And HTF follows that same type of formula, trying to give all the islands an opportunity. If an island cannot use those funds for whatever reason, we go to the next county, see if they can use it, and just keep moving that way. HTF retains 5% of the total funds for our administrative and planning cost. And then the balance of it, that 95%, is allocated to the various counties on a rotational basis. I'd also say that the counties, you may hear the term sub-grantees. HHFDC is a grantee. When we sub-grant to a county, they're referred to as sub-grantees, if you hear that. Historically, HHFDC has offered the city and county of Honolulu half of the balance of the HTF funds, and then the balance of that was allocated to the next county in the rotation. But since about 2016, with a few exceptions, the city and county of Honolulu has had to return funds to HHFDC to be reallocated. And there's some years that HHFDC made the decision along with the city and county not to allocate HTF funds to the city. HHFD staff and the City and County of Honolulu Department of Community Services has been in a lot of communications with each other this year. Weekly meetings, correspondence, and so forth. But the bottom line is for PY 2024, the city has declined receiving HTF funds. So the Hawaii County is the next neighboring county in the rotation, and they are willing to accept the entire amount of the HTF funding for 2024 if the board so approves that. Staff recommends basically 3 changes in the PY 2024 HTF allocation plan as compared to 2023's plan. And that is one, as I just alluded to allocate the entire 2024 HTF funding to Hawaii County, less 5% for our administrative and planning cost. The second thing staff recommends is to update the HTF program maximum per unit subsidy limit chart. I believe that's chart 5 in your 4 action. Just to update that, it gets HUD publishes new figures every year, so we want to update that. But we also want to clarify in the allocation plan that the HTF limit would be based on the what we call the TDC limit. That's the public housing total development cost limits. We want to clarify that the HT limit will be those TDC limits that are in effect at the time of the commitment of the funds. In other words, what we're putting in the 4 action, that's what it is now, but HUD may come out tomorrow, next week, whenever, and update that. And we want to have the updated figure without having to come back to the board and amend for a few numbers there. And the third thing that staff recommends a change from last year's is to replace the physical condition standards inspection protocol with the national standards for physical inspection of real estate protocol. That is a mouthful that basically is saying HUD had a standard for inspecting affordable housing units that were supported by the programs. HUD is now switching to a newer program that'll be going into effect. So we just want to fall in line with the new inspection protocol. So staff is asking the board to approve recommendation. I'll take my glasses off because I can't see too well on the little print. So I want to make sure I hit this right. we recommend that the HHFDC Board of Directors approve the following. Approve the PY 2024 HTF allocation plan as recommended by staff, subject to public comments. After public comments, authorize the executive director to approve the PY 2024 HTF allocation plan, provided that there's no substantive amendments are required. And C, authorize the executive director to take all necessary action to effectuate the purposes of this for action. That completes my presentation. If you have any questions, I've got Danielle around here somewhere that can help me cover.
Board members, do you have questions for Claude? Thank you for the presentation and the information. Call for the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Going on to item 3F, or excuse me, 3E. This is to approve an extension to the rental housing revolving fund letter of intent for the Hale Uhi Vai Nalu Phase 2 project located in Kapolei, Oahu, TMK number 19-1-013-052. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
We have a second. Is there anyone in the public wishing to testify? This agenda item? Yes. We do have someone here. Oh, great. Okay, come on up and introduce yourself.
Pleased to be here. My name is Tim Cantwell. Principal Cantwell Anderson Inc., which owns Break Hawaii and owns the master lease with the VA out of Barbers Point. We have housing out there now for about 285. We made an error here in the time request, and we want the full year that it's rather than 7 months. That's the only change. We do anticipate being in the ground certainly by May of a few months before, but same time. We would like to get the full year on the extension.
So that would
The October.
be October 31st.
Instead of March, instead of
Board members, you have questions for Mr. Cantwell or staff? Well, let me ask you, the additional time, why is the additional time?
we,
I know this project has had a few rough years going through the COVID period and the lease resolution with the VA. So
and while, and the current one, that's hard for us to control, is that the shifty office apparently didn't file in their reports on the NEPA, which was already approved by the state attorney general years ago. And so we're backtracking to get that reported, and that has to be at least, we have to have that in order to clear our development permit, which is otherwise all set to go. And we just don't want to put ourselves up against a wall.
okay, and then maybe if we could ask David to kind of chime in on that. Is that extension acceptable to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna do a presentation for action and I'll detail that
Okay.
and other items as
I
well.
just understood we needed to make that request.
Well, before we entertain that additional time, we'll take David's presentation and
Sure.
discuss it. Thank you, though.
We're here to answer. I'm from Los Angeles, came in for this. Rochelle is our local director.
Well, thank you for coming over.
Sure. Always a pleasure. Get my surfing at work.
Thank you, Chair. So Hale Uhi Vainalu Phase 2 is a 50-unit family project in Kapolei, Hawaii. Project will contain studio units serving those up to 30, 50, 80, and 100% AMI. Property is a leasehold on land owned by the Department of Veteran Affairs. And the affordability commitment for the project is 75 years. Developer was just here, Falbreak Hawaii 2 LLC. So some background on the project. The project received a rental housing revolving fund award of up to $3.38 million on April 19th, 2019. This project is not using any reservation of low-income housing tax credits or any allocation of private activity bonds. This is a strictly RHRF project. The project is using sponsor equity and a senior loan from Gershman Investment Corporation of approximately $5,228,800. The updated project cost that we have received from the developer is now $9,387,500. So right now, the current expiration date to close the RHF loan is October 31st, 2023. The project has received previous extensions from the HHFDC board to October 31st, 21, October 31st, 22, and the current date. On September 13th of 2023, the awardee did submit a request to extend the letter of an RHRF letter of intent to close to May 31st, 2024, but as the developer has just requesting the full year, same extension to October 31st, 2024. So the project does anticipate receiving its building permits early next year, with the financial closing and start of construction hopefully in April of 24. Completion of the project is slated for October 2025, as long as the timeline is maintained. So staff reviewed the request based on our 3 standard thresholds for extensions. The project does have site control with an existing lease with the Department of VA. The lease has already been extended through 2078, so site control is definitely in place. The site recently completed a subdivision to create the new parcel for the project site and additional parcels for future phases as well. And Mr. Cantwell just noted, so the project is in the Hawaii Community Development Authority's special district in Kalaeloa. So this is an HCDA area project. So their awardee is working with HCDA to obtain its development permit. And the process is currently pending the 2 required public hearings and also pending approval from SHPD, as was mentioned by Mr. Cantwell. For financing, the project has a current conditional HUD 221D4 loan commitment, an insured mortgage loan from Gershman Investment Corp, and that's been made current. Now, the awardee has indicated that they will be submitting a request for an increase in their rental or housing revolving fund award. And staff is working with the developer. Developer has been very responsive and helpful in evaluating this request for feasibility and efficiency and other standards that we put upon such requests. This amended award, I believe, would require additional revised approval from HUD in order to close, which would take approximately 6 months, maybe less, which would justify giving the additional cushion, I would assume, for an extension through October 31st. The project follows a similar design and financial structure as a previous phase that was completed, which was the Uhivainalu addition a few years ago. And then the infrastructure that this project is putting in will serve 3 future planned phases in the same site, which would be an additional planned 200 units for veterans. So staff has reviewed this request, and in considering the extension deadline being now October 31st, 2024, as requested by the developer, we would support recommending extending the RHRF letter of intent deadline to close for the RHRF award for Uhivainalu Phase 2 to October 31, 2024, subject to all the requirements as set forth in the original award for action dated April 11, 2019. And to authorize the executive director to undertake all necessary tasks to effectuate the purposes of this for action.
Thank you, David. Are there any questions, board members? Discussion. All quiet. I do have a question. This is for Mr. Cantwell. Looking at your project budget, your square foot costs, this is for your total development, under construction, but it's still at $311 per square foot. Have you done any updating to your project budget because I did see in the 4 action that you're preparing to come back at a future date for additional rental houses?
That's correct.
Do you have a sense for where you're at right now? Is if you're
Yes. I do. Sharing?
shocked or
I think so, but you know,
slow compared to
the effect, you know what's happened. We've had a significant jump in costs since we first put this together, and we can borrow half what we used to be able to borrow. You put those two together and it's a shocking number.
So when would you anticipate coming back for additional?
Well, we would anticipate bringing the project back next month. We want to have the project be closer to its actual set start to financial closing because the costs change so regularly. We wanted to make sure that the ask we come down to the board for is going to be current when the project is ready to close. And so our intent at this time was to bring forth an extension to give the project extra time to move towards financial closing. But if you want to bring additional resource request to the board next month after and the project has been providing us updated costs pro formas, and we're working with them on analyzing those costs.
You're welcome.
Yeah, if there's no additional questions, the question, and this approval will be, just to be clear, is to request an extension date to October 31st, 2024. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go on to item 3F. Is to approve an extension to resolution number 180, which provides for official intent with respect to the issuance of Hula May multifamily tax exempt revenue bonds for the Hale Mo'ili'ili project located in Honolulu, Oahu. TMK numbers 12-7-008-018 and 020. Can I have a motion? Is there a second? Another second. Anyone from the public wanting to testify on this agenda item? Okay, if not, we'll turn it back over to David.
Thank you, Chair. So Hale Mo'ili'ili is a 278 unit family project located at the old Bolodrome location in Mo'ili'ili next to Stadium Park. The project consists of studio 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units and will serve those up to 30, 60, 80, and 100% AMI. The project has committed to an affordability period of 65 years. The project site, the fee interest is currently owned by the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, and the developer is Stanford Car Development. So history on the project, Act 248, Session Law 2022, provided an earmark of cash infusion into the rental housing revolving fund for fiscal year 2023 of $41,500,000 for the project, which is located at 820 Eisenberg Street. On November 10th, 2022, the HHFDC Board of Directors approved the following for Hale Mo'ili'ili: up to $80 million in tax exempt bonds from the Hula May multifamily bond program, $4,721,728 in annual federal LIHTC over 10 years, and $4,721,728 in annual state LIHTC over 5 years. On May 30th, 2023, HHFDC received the preliminary approval from the governor to issue up to $80 million in revenue bonds under the HMMF program. The current deadline for bond issuance for the project is November 10th, 2023. On September 11th, 2023, the awardee submitted a formal request to extend this deadline to issue bonds as detailed in Resolution 1. The staff has evaluated this request based on, again, on its 3 threshold areas for extensions and has found the following. The project is maintaining site control through its development agreement with the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, which is dated February 11th, 2022. The project has completed the majority of its obligations to the city and state with regards to its entitlements and permits. The awardee has provided staff with a comprehensive table of permit statuses and updates. Currently, the project is pending DPP wastewater branch approval, traffic review branch approval, and SHPE approval of an MOA related to the National Historic Preservation Act. The project has provided updated letters of commitment for its federal and state LIHTC investors, as well as the financing commitment for their HUD 221D4 loan. The project's timeline now anticipates receiving permits in Q4 2023, targeting financial closing in Q1 2024, with construction beginning soon thereafter. The completion of construction for the project is targeted at Q3 2025. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends that the board approve the following: extending the deadline to issue HMF bonds for Hollywood Ilili to August 10th, 2024, and authorize the executive director to undertake all tasks necessary to effectuate the purpose of the action. We have the developer present with us today to answer any questions, and I am available to answer questions as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions, directors? I have a quick question. Maybe Stanford could answer this one.
Morning, Chair, members of the board. Thank you for having me this morning.
Looking at your current estimate for building permit home closing, and looking at Q4 of this year, for both those things to occur, do you need to go out to August? I guess is my is that? I mean, I know the recommendation is to go out to August for a time extension, but if you
Understand, but we're looking at a December closing, an update with respect to securing building permits. So we're waiting on the civil engineer branch to sign off. That's the last sign off we need from through DPP. And we're waiting on the HUD to sign the MOA, which then SHPE will approve the project. So that should be imminent. We are on weekly calls with PNC and HUD. And so we're working towards a December closing. We're basically on the 3-yard line.
in there. Good. So I mean, you're just giving a cushion basically in case something
Exactly.
happens.
Never know what happens. I've seen it happen before.
You've seen a few things.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong?
Who would have thought it would be an or in Israel?
Okay. Anyone else? Any other questions? Thank you, Stanford. Thank you. If not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Item 3G, this is to approve the proposed new chapter 15-309 titled Dwelling Unit Revolving Fund Equity Pilot Program, Hawaii Administrative Rules, implementing the provisions of Act 92, Central Laws of Hawaii, 2023, by establishing a dwelling unit revolving fund pilot program. I have a motion. So moved. Just a second. Is there anyone in the public wanting to testify on this agenda item? Hearing none, please.
Morning, everybody, Chair, members of the board. My name is Lorna Komitani. I'm with the Real Estate Services section as the section chief. On June 21st, 2023, Governor Green signed into law Act 092, which authorizes HHFDC to 1, establish a 5-year pilot program to address the high unmet demand of for-sale units by Hawaii residents who meet certain criteria as listed in Section 2A of the Core Action. It also allows authorizes HHFDC to use up to $10 million from the Dwelling Unit Revolving Fund. Under this pilot program titled the DERF Equity Pilot Program, the corporation may purchase equity in for-sale housing development projects. A summary of the substantive provisions is included in Section 3, such as equity allocation, marketing of the program units, unit offering, repayment, monitoring, and fees. The full scope of the proposed new program rules are attached in Exhibit 3. Staff recommends that the board approve the proposed new chapter 15-309 employee administrative rule, subject to approval as to form by HHFDC's Department Deputy Attorney General and the governor's approval. Authorize the executive director or his designated representatives to conduct a public hearing on the adoption of the proposed rules. And after the public hearing, authorize the interim executive director to transmit the rules to the governor's office for final approval, provided that no substantive amendments are made.
Thank you, Lorna. Are there any questions, directors? Yep.
That's a quick question. Sorry, on page 309-4. Section 309-8. The last sentence. It reads the corporation's equity shall be allocated to specific units, and the units shall be offered to eligible buyers prioritized by the corporation. Should it be eligible buyers or the qualified purchasers? It's offered to qualified purchasers, right?
Yes. Be offered to qualified purchasers.
That's what. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Like that. I have a couple of questions. I don't know if you can answer them just yet, but I do want to say thank you for putting the rules together. This is a very exciting program because I think it's going to have a tremendous benefit to promote home ownership. I'm really excited about this one. So my first question is, will the funds be made available through a competitive process? Or will it be like the first come, first served type of?
It would be probably first come, first served.
Okay.
Because there aren't that many for sale products. We will make it available to all developers, but it'll be their option to participate in it.
Okay. Yeah, and I was kind of my other thought about it. The question is, would there be any consideration to a statewide allocation? So much of the funding for neighbor islands, for example, will that be considered in the administration of the program?
We will be advertising the program, and developers know statewide, and seeking out projects which hopefully will want to participate in this program.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, if not, thank you again, Lorna. All those in favor of the motion to approve?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? There's none, motion carries. Okay, moving on to item 3H of the agenda. This is information on the Front Street Apartments affordable rental housing project located in Item Homes, EMK number 4-5-003-013. Good morning, Chris.
Morning, Chair.
This is just an information, so let me just ask if there's anyone from the public wanting to call the testimony on this agenda item. Don't hear anybody.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good morning, members of the board. Yeah, this is just an informational item, update on the status of Front Street Apartments. As you all know, unfortunately, the property was destroyed by wildfire in August of this year. So a little bit of background. The project was completed in 2001. It included 142 studio, 1 and 2 bedroom units. And it was developed on a ground lease from the Weinberg Foundation. The lessee is a Hawaii Limited Partnership whose general partner is Lahaina Homes LLC. The sole member of that LLC is Adam Dornbush. And how HHFDC came into the project as the lessor is because the project was developed through low-income housing tax credits. Because the lessee in 2015, near the end of the 15-year tax credit compliance period, exercised an option under the LIHTC program to submit a qualified contract request pursuant to Section 42 of the Internal Revenue Code and no qualified contract was executed, the lessee retained ownership of the project. And essentially all of the affordability restrictions relating to the LIHTC program were released effective 2019. That's when HHFDC stepped in. We were able to acquire the land from Weinberg in 2019 for just under $15 million. And then we renegotiated the lease with the lessee. Those negotiations actually concluded last year. And you may recall that last July, we brought to the board a request to amend and restate the original lessee, essentially, sorry, the original lease. Essentially what we did was agree to drop the annual rent from something like $300,000 plus a year to $60,000 a year. We agreed to extend the lease longer term, and in return, the lessee agreed to reinstate all of the affordability provisions that existed under the LIHTC program. So as of last year, everything was put back into place as it was originally structured, and the project was affordable to families earning up to 50% and 60% of the area median income. Just jumping to more events. As I mentioned, the project was destroyed by fire. We were in contact with Adam Dornbush the very next day, August 9th. On August 21st, we received a formal notice of casualty from the lessee. There are a couple of graphics attached as exhibits. Exhibit A is the project location map. You can see this project was right downtown Lahaina. Exhibit B was an aerial that was taken before the project was destroyed. And then Exhibit C is the current aerial view. I know it's not too clear, but as you can see, there are no rooftops remaining in this aerial view. On September 5th, we received a property update letter from the lessee, which is attached as Exhibit E. And I'll highlight some aspects of that letter. The first is that all 260 plus residents and employees at Front Street Apartments are evacuated and are safe. And ownership credits this in large part due to the actions of the longtime site manager, Mr. Randy Arbaugh. Second, April Housing provided $3,000 assistance checks to every Front Street Apartments household. April Housing is a Blackstone company. Blackstone is the world's largest alternative asset manager. April Housing actually invests in affordable housing and acquired the original limited partner interest in this deal in 2021. Per the letter, only one of the 19 buildings remains standing. The project is believed to be a total loss. And in that property update letter, lessee requested immediate abatement of the ground rent and release of capital reserves. We did approve those requests on September 5th. And an amendment to the amended and restated ground lease, which fully abates the rents payable to HHFDC for a period of 1 year, has been drafted and is being reviewed by the lessee. Just wanted to note that the capital reserves balance was approximately $261,000 as of August 2023. We did agree to have allow that to be released. And just as a final note, on September 21st, we met in person with Mr. Dornbush and representatives of April Housing to discuss the future of the project and April Housing's shared commitment to preserving and creating affordable housing in Hawaii. Just as a final note, during the meeting, the Blackstone representatives noted that they provided $1.5 million in relocation relief and assistance payments and charitable donations to support employees and residents residents at Blackstone's Maui real estate properties and the people of Maui. So really, this is was just a quick update. We wanted to let the board know that we did approve. The most important thing to let you know is that we did approve the request to abate the rent for a period of 1 year. We felt an obligation to let you know we gave up that rent. But I think it was done for a good reason. Any questions?
If not, thank you. Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Okay, this. To the section 4 of our meeting agenda, which is the report by the executive director.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few items to note. My report is for you in your packets. But for the fire relief housing program, which HHF stood up shortly after the fire started in August. Latest, we have 1,357 properties that were submitted, of which currently 600 are about 600 are available on our site now. And we estimate that we placed 370 families through the program to rental housing. And staff is still manning the phones. We've responded to 873 calls to the hotline to date. What we're seeing now, though, is that there are multiple similar programs to ours, so there's a need for coordination. CNHA recently, in association with Red Cross, is standing up a program where they're providing financial assistance to property owners who house displaced persons, and there's third parties also with similar efforts to our CNHA. So what we're doing now is we're trying to facilitate collaboration among all these different groups, because we don't want to have the efforts which are just confusing to the people we're trying to serve. So we're trying to facilitate a meeting to coordinate all of our efforts and see how we can consolidate, I guess, what we're collectively trying to do. Following up on our direction last month about HHFDC can do for long-term housing. We did have a conversation with Senator Schatz's staff, so we made him aware of what we think we could do if we had additional resources. The Senator staff was very supportive. The challenge now is finding the vehicle that he can place his requests onto. It would have to be an appropriations bill in Congress, and presently there is no such bill in play. So, but we'll leave it up to the senator. We'll ensure that he'll find the means to get us the funding. For our Northwest Corner RFP, we did receive several proposals. Staff is evaluating them, and we anticipate bringing a developer and proposal to the board, hopefully in early next year in January. And just one more thing to note is you're probably aware that HHFDC is acquiring the Hagai Institute on Maui, so the former Maui Sun Hotel. Things have changed though from what we had first anticipated. It was supposed to be HHFDC would acquire the property, lease it to Maui County. We're just basically, we wouldn't have much of a role in renovating the property or operating it. Due to the fires, though, Maui County staff is understandably very busy. Doesn't seem like they can take ownership of the property when closing occurs, which will be later this year. So Chris is very busy right now, because basically once we acquire the property, we're going to be owning and operating a hotel. That's something that we do. So it's become much more complicated. We're working our way through this. The end goal is to provide long-term housing for Maui residents.
Board members, do you have any questions for Dean? Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for the report. That brings us to the end of today's agenda. So I'd like to ask for a motion for adjournment. Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.